In the fluorescent-lit landscape of office life, small things can take on disproportionate significance. For me, it was a coffee mug. Not just any mug, mind you. This was a bright blue beacon of a past Hawaiian vacation, a ceramic testament to sunnier days, complete with a stylized volcano erupting beneath a sky blue glaze. My name was even clearly, though discreetly, penned in permanent marker on the unglazed bottom rim, a small claim in a communal kitchen, often rife with minor appropriations. I kept it in the office kitchen in our Colorado workplace, a little piece of personal joy amidst the TPS reports and quarterly reviews.
Then there was Mark. Mark, a coworker who apparently operated under the delusion that all unattended items were part of a grand office-wide sharing collective with a particular fondness for my mug. I asked him, politely at first, to please stop using it. He just smirked, that infuriatingly smug little twitch of the lips, and uttered the words that sealed his fate. "It's just a mug." Just a mug? Oh, it was far more than that to me. And it was about to become far, far more to him. I decided then and there to make it his mug in a way he would never, ever forget. My plan involved a secret ingredient, a weekend of quiet preparation, and a potent lesson in olfactory warfare. The smell of victory, as it turns out, can be quite distinctive. And often it smells a little like justice, with a faint, lingering note of cheap fish.
My Hawaiian souvenir mug wasn't just a vessel for lukewarm office coffee. It was a tangible link to a memory, a small rebellion against the beige monotony of cubicle life. It stood out in the drab office kitchen, a splash of cerulean against the stained countertops and mismatched forgotten company swag. The volcano design was cheerful, almost comically so, a daily reminder of warmth, escape, and the gentle aloha spirit. A spirit Mark seemed determined to grind into coffee-stained oblivion with his relentless unauthorized usage. I'd chosen it carefully on that trip, not from a generic airport kiosk, but from a little artisan shop tucked away in a small town on Maui. It had character. It had, I thought, a clear owner, especially with Jamie inscribed on its base.
Mark, however, was a man who seemed to navigate the world with an unshakable and deeply irritating sense of entitlement. He wasn't overtly malicious, just oblivious, in that uniquely frustrating way some people are. He probably saw the mug, noted its superior aesthetic quality compared to the sad, chipped offerings in the communal cupboard, and simply decided it was now his to use at will. The first few times I'd find it in the drying rack, clearly having been used, I'd sigh internally, wash it again myself, and place it back in my preferred spot, hoping the hint would be taken. It never was. So I escalated to a direct, albeit polite, verbal request. I caught him one morning mid-pour, my vibrant blue mug in his hand. "Hey, Mark," I said, keeping my tone light, casual. "That's actually my personal mug. I'd appreciate it if you didn't use it." He paused, looked down at the volcano steaming with his generic brand coffee, then up at me. The smirk? That was the first sign this wasn't going to be easy. "Oh, right," he said, with no actual intention of stopping. "It's just a mug, though, isn't it? What's the big deal?" "The big deal, Mark," I wanted to say, "is that it's mine. It has sentimental value, and my name is literally on the bottom." But I kept my cool, externally at least. "Well, it's special to me," I said, perhaps a little more firmly. "So please, use one of the other ones." He shrugged, took a defiant sip and sauntered off, leaving me fuming quietly. It's just a mug. The dismissiveness of it, the utter lack of respect for a simple, reasonable request, that's what lit the fuse. This wasn't about the mug anymore. Not entirely. It was about boundaries. It was about respect. And Mark, with his smug indifference, had just volunteered himself for a practical lesson. The gears of petty vengeance began to turn in my mind. I wasn't going to stoop to yelling or reporting him to HR over a coffee cup. That felt disproportionate and, frankly, exhausting. No, this called for something more tailored. Something that would address the offense directly in a way that was both undeniable and untraceable back to me with absolute certainty. My mind sifted through options. A passive-aggressive note? Too easily ignored. Hiding the mug? That felt like I was being inconvenienced further. No, the mug had to remain in play. It had to be the instrument of his education.
The idea, when it finally struck me, was beautiful in its disgusting simplicity. It came to me, rather prosaically, while I was feeding my cat that evening. The pungent aroma of her salmon pâté, an aroma that, when fresh, was merely mildly offensive to human nostrils, but aged, concentrated, applied strategically, it held potential. Mark liked to use my mug for his morning coffee, sometimes leaving it unwashed in the sink for hours. He clearly wasn't overly concerned with hygiene. This lack of fastidiousness would be his undoing. A plan began to form, a silent, olfactory siege. I would make that mug so uniquely, personally unpleasant for him that he'd never so much as glance at it again. The smirk would be wiped off his face, replaced, ideally, with a look of profound, bewildered nausea. The game was on.
The execution of my plan required patience and a certain degree of domestic alchemy. Friday evening after work was go time. I'd acquired a small, single-serving can of the most offensively fishy cat food I could find. Something with a name like Ocean Explosion or Fisherman's Foul Delight, the kind that makes even the cat pause for a moment before diving in. Back home, away from prying office eyes, I began the delicate operation.
I didn't want the evidence to be immediately visible, of course. That would be too obvious. The beauty of this plan lay in its subtlety, its insidious creep. Using a toothpick, I carefully, almost surgically, smeared a thin, near-invisible film of the pungent pâté under the inner rim of the mug. Just a whisper of fishy doom, nestled where it wouldn't be seen, nor immediately washed away by a cursory rinse, but where the warmth of a hot beverage would, I theorized, gently coax its malevolent aroma into full, gag-inducing bloom. Once the deed was done, I sealed the mug in a zip-top bag, creating a miniature marination chamber. This olfactory time bomb then spent the entire weekend locked away in a dark corner of my utility closet, brewing, festering, its odious potential intensifying with each passing hour. I envisioned the microscopic particles of cat food having a wild, rancid party in there.
Monday morning arrived, bright and full of promise, at least for me. I retrieved the mug from its confinement, giving it a quick, perfunctory rinse, just enough to remove any visible sheen, but not enough to disturb the truly important work I'd done under the rim. I placed it in its usual spot in the office kitchen, looking as innocent and inviting as ever. Clean, dry, and utterly unsuspecting. Then I made my own coffee and a nondescript company mug and retreated to my desk,
positioning myself for a clear view of the kitchen entrance. The trap was set. All I had to do was wait for the mouse to take the cheese, or in this case, the self-entitled coworker to take the bait.
It didn't take long. Mark strolled in around 8:45 a.m., a little later than usual, looking like he'd had a rough start to his week. He scanned the available mugs, his eyes, as predicted, lighting up when they landed on my bright blue Hawaiian beauty. He picked it up, gave it a cursory glance, not even bothering to sniff it, the amateur, and proceeded to the coffee machine. I watched, a small internal smile playing on my lips as he filled it to the brim. He took a long, satisfying gulp right there in the kitchen, then headed towards his own cubicle, which was unfortunately, or perhaps fortunately for the wider office population, located in a relatively open-plan area.
The first hour was uneventful. Then, around mid-morning, the initial subtle tendrils of the aroma began to make their presence known. It started as a faint, unplaceable unpleasantness. I saw a colleague wrinkle her nose. Someone else fanned the air absent-mindedly. Then the descriptions began, whispered at first, then with increasing volume and bewildered disgust. What is that smell? Did something die in the walls? Smells like a dumpster fire at a fish market. I kept my head down, feigning deep concentration on a spreadsheet, but my ears were on high alert. The epicenter of the stench was clearly, to anyone with a functioning nose, emanating from Mark's vicinity. He himself had started to look peaky. His face, normally ruddy, had taken on a greenish tinge. He kept sniffing the air, then his coffee, a puzzled, then horrified expression dawning. The pièce de résistance came when Brenda, from accounting, a woman not known for her subtlety, loudly declared, "Good Lord! It smells like someone microwaved a week-old diaper filled with fish oil and then a corpse fell into it." Mark, at this point, looked like he was about to lose his breakfast. He slammed my mug down on his desk, the remaining coffee sloshing over the sides. He grabbed it gingerly, rushed to the kitchen, and practically threw it into the sink, then ran his hands under the tap, splashing water on his face. He muttered something about feeling sick and, without another word to anyone, grabbed his jacket and fled the office for the day. Victory. Silent, pungent, and exquisitely petty. The immediate aftermath of Mark's hasty, nausea-fueled departure was a mixture of relief and bewildered speculation among the remaining office staff. The break room, particularly the sink area where my beautifully booby-trapped mug now lay abandoned, became a subject of intense olfactory investigation and equally intense avoidance. No one dared touch the mug, of course. It sat there, a monument to Mark's earlier transgression and his subsequent, very public discomfort. The smell, though dissipating slightly now that its primary heat source, Mark's coffee, was gone, still lingered, a ghost of seafood past.
I, of course, said nothing. I offered no theories about the mystery smell. I simply observed, a model of innocent concern. When colleagues discussed it, I would nod sympathetically, perhaps offering a vague, "Oh dear, that sounds unpleasant." My poker face was impeccable. The beauty of the plan was its deniability. Who could prove anything? It was just a terrible, unexplainable smell that happened to coincide with Mark using a particular mug. Purely circumstantial if one didn't know the secret ingredient.
Later that afternoon, once the initial wave of disgust had subsided, and the office air had been somewhat restored through a combination of open windows, despite the Colorado chill, and brave souls deploying air freshener like chemical warfare agents, I saw my opportunity for the subtle reinforcement phase. During a lull, I wandered into the break room, ostensibly to make a cup of tea. Sarah and Ben from marketing were there, cautiously sniffing the air. "Still a bit funky in here, isn't it?" Sarah commented, wrinkling her nose. "Tell me about it," Ben replied. "I hope whatever that was this morning doesn't come back. I still can't get that smell out of my head." This was my cue. "It's so weird, isn't it?" I chimed in, my voice tinged with thoughtful concern. "You know, it just makes you think about hygiene and things, like how gross it is when people use each other's personal items without asking. You just never know where things have been or what could be on them, right?" I paused, letting the implication hang in the air. Someone could be sick or just, not as clean. It's just good manners to stick to your own stuff, or at least ask. Sarah and Ben nodded vigorously. "Totally," Sarah agreed. "I'd be mortified if I made the office smell like that." The unspoken connection between using other people's stuff and horrible mystery smells was thus gently planted in the office consciousness. No accusations, just a general observation on etiquette and unforeseen consequences. The next day, Mark returned to work, looking sheepish and considerably more cautious. He gave the kitchen, and specifically the corner where my mug usually sat, I had discreetly retrieved, bleached, and thoroughly sanitized it the previous evening after everyone left, a wide berth. For his morning beverage, he was armed with a stack of paper cups from the communal supply, a decidedly less appealing option, but clearly, in his mind, a safer one. He didn't make eye contact with me, or with many people, for that matter. His rebirth, if you could call it that, was as the guy who might have been responsible for the great office stink of whenever that Monday was. People didn't say it to his face, but the subtle shift in their interactions with him was palpable. They'd pause momentarily before entering the break room if he was in there. Conversations would sometimes dip when he approached. He was, in a small, almost imperceptible way, slightly ostracized, forever linked to an olfactory incident of legendary unpleasantness. He never, ever touched anyone else's mug again. He drank exclusively from paper cups for months, a visible testament to the lesson learned. My quiet campaign of education had been a resounding success. The desired behavior modification was achieved, not through confrontation, but through consequence. The final act of this little office drama was the quiet reclamation of my property. After a week of observing Mark's reformed behavior, his diligent use of disposable cups, his almost fearful avoidance of any mug that wasn't explicitly communal, I decided it was safe to bring my Hawaiian souvenir back into circulation, under my direct supervision, of course. I'd scrubbed it with the fervor of a hazmat team, ensuring no trace of its fishy past remained, save for the invisible sheen of victory that only I could perceive. Now, the bright blue, volcano-adorned mug sits proudly on my desk, not in the communal kitchen. It's a daily reminder, a small, colorful trophy of a battle quietly fought and decisively won. Sometimes, when I'm sipping my tea, I catch Mark glancing towards it, a flicker of something, recognition, lingering nausea in his eyes, before he quickly looks away and takes a sip from his flimsy paper cup. He has never mentioned the incident, nor have I. There's an unspoken understanding, a truth that hangs in the air between us, thicker than any cat food-induced miasma. The resolution is, for me, deeply satisfying.
It wasn't about causing lasting harm, but about instilling a memorable lesson in respect for personal boundaries. A lesson Mark was clearly incapable of learning through polite discourse. The payoff is multi-layered. Firstly, my mug is safe, exclusively mine once more. Secondly, Mark's casual arrogance has been notably curtailed. He's more cautious, more aware of his surroundings, and one hopes the concept of personal property. Thirdly, and perhaps most deliciously, is the quiet, enduring legend of the smell. Even now, months later, someone will occasionally reference it in hushed, still horrified tones. Remember that awful Monday? What was that? And a few eyes will subtly flick towards Mark. He usually just pretends not to notice, his face slightly paler.
The office ecosystem has found its equilibrium. People are perhaps a little more mindful of whose mug is whose. The break room, for the most part, smells of nothing more offensive than microwaved popcorn or slightly burnt coffee. My Hawaiian mug, however, still radiates a certain aura. To everyone else, it's just a cheerful, quirky coffee cup. But to me, and I suspect to Mark in his deepest, most suppressed olfactory nightmares, it's a symbol. It's a testament to the fact that even the smallest transgression, the most casual dismissal of another person's request, can have unforeseen, creatively unpleasant consequences. It doesn't smell like cat food anymore. Now and forevermore, it smells like victory. A quiet, unassuming, and utterly complete victory. And every morning, as I fill it with my coffee, I allow myself a small internal smirk. After all, it's not just a mug. It's a legend.
Sometimes a direct request isn't enough to maintain a simple boundary. When polite words fail, a little creativity can go a long way in teaching a memorable lesson. You don't always need a grand confrontation to reclaim your space or your favorite coffee mug. Often, the most effective solutions are subtle, a little bit mischievous, and leave a lasting impression. Or in this case, a lasting aversion. Respect is earned, and sometimes it's taught in the most unexpected and pungent ways.